So Dr. McNamara is not available for questions, so we'll maybe spare Julia and Tim questions on the microbiome transplant aspect. But we're going to welcome questions from the floor. Please start coming up to the microphones with your questions. And we had a question online for Tim to say that your explanation of the inner working life of the pathology department made it seem so simple. So why does a biopsy take so long to get the results from?
Because many of those steps take quite a lot of time, so I spoke through them quite quickly. So fixation, there's a Goldilocks zone for fixation, really. You want things to be fixed well enough so things work, but if they're fixed too long, other things stop working, and overfixation particularly can affect some of the molecular testing. But we at least fix things for 24 hours normally. It depends. If you've had a biopsy so we process in Edinburgh for other hospitals. So if you've had a biopsy in the other hospital, the specimen has to transport to Edinburgh, then it will fix overnight from there. If that's a Friday, it will get put through on the Sunday through to Monday. So there's already 3 or 4 days there. Then the embedding and the staining will probably get done on that following day, and it will come through to the pathologist. If it's a quick one, so if it's look at the H&E, okay, I know what I'm looking at, we can send out a report, we can report that on the same day. If you aren't quite sure, you want to do some immunohistochemistry, some of that brown staining, you make the request, that might add 1-2 days. Depends on which antibody you're asking for, because they're done in batches of runs, so that adds another few days. So all these steps add up. Now, we can get it turned around in a day. We can get the transplant liver biopsies. If you get, I'm making promises I can't keep. If you get a biopsy through to us by lunchtime, we can get a diagnosis out to you by the end of business on the same day, if we need to. So if someone phones us up and says we need this now because someone's very sick, we can do it. But when we're dealing with 80,000 a year, we can't do that with everyone.
And maybe on top of that, do you think that diagnostic algorithms will speed up that process, or other? So do you think that there are ways to improve the time frame we need now for diagnosis?
You mean computational pathology, or potentially? So it's in a high volume. So if you think about the department as a whole, where it's having to deal with, let's say, 80,000, the majority of specimens are, so high volume specialties are gynae and GI. So a lot of the work is disproportionately on those. There are computational pathology tools that are definitely, they're kind of in clinical validations phases, that can probably effectively screen those high frequency cases, which should allow you to effectively traffic light them. So if the computer says basically these ones are benign, you can wait. These ones we're suspicious are malignant, look at them now. You can sort of shuffle your work through to try and get the answers that lead to treatment quickest.
Right. We have a lot of questions from online for Julia, actually. So if I may, so there's one which was, what is more expensive, the liquid biopsy or an NGS for the molecular testing?
I guess it's a bit of a complex question. I think at the moment, if it's just the test itself, the liquid biopsy is very new, and so they're more expensive.
Okay.
But
that is an answer. I take that as an answer. And at what stage do you think, from the disease stage, would it be a place for the liquid biopsy?
So at the moment, a lot of the assays are only validated in the advanced stages, so stage 3 and 4 particularly in these cancers. But technology is evolving, and there's new assays that look at slightly different things and do the tests differently, which are becoming more accurate in early stages. So the work is moving it into stage 1 and 2.
And the next question was about the curation. So after curation, you're in surveillance. Do you think that liquid biopsy has a place or will have a place in surveillance of patients?
Hopefully. So there's work at the moment looking at minimal residual disease, so that's after resection when all the macroscopic disease we hope is gone, and we're looking for kind of microscopic disease. And I think in other cancer types there's emerging evidence, colorectal cancer in particular, but yeah, hopefully it will move that way in these cancers.
Thank you. There's a from microphone on the left. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. My name is Katrina. I'm a patient, and I was diagnosed with bile duct cancer stage 4 just last October. I just have a question to Dr. Julia about the liquid biopsy. So basically, it was really hard for my doctors to detect the cancer. I went through 4 biopsies, like the tissue biopsies, and it still was inconclusive coming back. Eventually, the 5th biopsy came back. So do you think that the liquid biopsy would be better to detect the cancer? And when is the best time actually to do it, like for the liquid biopsy then?
Yeah, we hope so. I think it's probably not at a stage where it completely replaces a tissue biopsy for everybody. You know, there are some fusions and things that you can pick up better on tissue, but for people that find themselves in a circumstance like you did, having 5 biopsies is not optimal. You know, it does really delay things. It comes with a whole host of risks. It's a painful procedure. Then absolutely, I think we see a role for liquid biopsy very early in that stage, you know, whether it be side by side with the first biopsy or, you know, at the same time as the second biopsy, but much earlier than the 5th, certainly.
Perfect. Thank you.
And as a follow-up on that, do you envisage a time where you might have a liquid biopsy and only if that's not detected to then go on to have a tissue biopsy, or do you think it'll never quite replace your histopathologist?
Maybe. Maybe for some people. I guess it's case by case, depending on how difficult a biopsy is to obtain. It's not quite there yet. There are, you know, certain variants that are not as good on liquid biopsy, so we still, you know, rely on histopathologists and tissue and all sorts of other, you know, non-malignant causes that might look like a malignancy on scans that, again, circulating tumour DNA doesn't help us with. So maybe for some people.
Are there any more questions from the audience? Because I think we've been through the questions online. If not, I would like to close the session.